Let's be real about something. When 50 Cent decides to move on somebody, it's never just about beef. It's calculated, it's surgical, and by the time the public finds out what he's doing, the damage is already done. That's exactly what's happening right now with everything circling around Diddy's collapse. And 50 is sitting right at the center of it with a smile on his face like he's been waiting for this moment for years. Because honestly, he probably has. See, most people look at 50 Cent and see a rapper who loves to troll online. And yeah, that's part of it. But what people keep underestimating is how intentional every single move he makes actually is. This is a man who sued himself to get out of a bankruptcy situation and still came out looking powerful. This is a man who turned Diddy's entire downfall into a content machine, a financial opportunity, and a public reckoning all at the same time. The trolling isn't random. It never is. Every meme, every vague post, every cryptic hint about recordings and tapes, it all serves a purpose. And that purpose is to keep the pressure building until something cracks. Now the latest thing 50 been hinting at is sending the internet into a full spiral. Word spreading that he's allegedly sitting on exclusive audio from what people are calling freak-off sessions. And what's making this different from regular industry gossip is the specific detail he keeps teasing. He's not just saying there are recordings. He's saying the voices on them belong to people the public would never expect. Not random industry figures, not low-level associates. Names, recognizable names, names that carry weight, legacy, and carefully built public images that would crumble overnight if these recordings are ever confirmed and released. And the moment those hints started spreading, the internet didn't wait for confirmation. People started doing what they always do, digging. Old interviews resurfaced. Old clips got reanalyzed. Old friendships started looking completely different under a new light. Because that's the thing about 50's strategy that most people miss. He doesn't always have to drop the actual evidence. He just has to point in a direction and let the public's memory do the rest. And people's memories about who was close to Diddy, who was at those parties, who made certain comments in old interviews, that seemed harmless at the time, all of that started flooding back the second 50 opened his mouth. What's also important to understand here is the history between 50 Cent and Diddy specifically. These two men have never been friends. There's been tension, shade, and a long record of public jabs going back years. But what changed recently is the scale. This stopped being about rap beef a long time ago. Now 50 is positioning himself as someone with access to information that could reshape how the entire industry is viewed. And whether that's completely true or partially exaggerated, the result is the same. Every time he posts, every time he hints, every time he goes live and says just enough without saying too much, the internet erupts, news cycles restart, old names get dragged back into conversations they thought were finished. And here's what makes this whole situation even more layered. 50 has been documenting Diddy's unraveling publicly for months. He turned it into a series on his social media. He's been posting old footage, old interviews, old moments between Diddy and various celebrities with captions that let the audience draw their own conclusions. It's one of the most effective media strategies anyone in hip-hop has ever pulled off because he never has to say anything directly defamatory. He just curates, he selects, he highlights, and then he watches the internet run with it while he sits back completely protected legally because he technically never made any direct accusations himself. That's the genius and the danger of what 50 is doing right now, because if these alleged recordings are real and they contain what insiders are quietly claiming they contain, then 50 isn't just trolling. He's holding something that could permanently alter how several major celebrities are perceived by millions of people worldwide. And if the recordings turn out to be less explosive than the hype, 50 still wins because he kept the conversation alive long enough to make everyone associated with Diddy's circle look uncomfortable, suspicious, and scrambling to distance themselves publicly. Either way, 50 Cent already won this round, and the names about to get pulled into this conversation next, they never saw it coming. If you want to understand how the entertainment industry can take someone with everything going for them and leave them completely unrecognizable, Bryshere Gray is the story people keep coming back to. Because on paper, this man had it all figured out, young, talented, charismatic, and discovered at exactly the right moment. He wasn't some industry plant or manufactured product. He was raw talent that got spotted and handed an opportunity most people from his background never see in a lifetime. And for a brief moment, it looked like his story was going to be one of the good ones. A kid from the streets of Philadelphia who made it out and built something real. Then everything fell apart, and not in a slow, gradual kind of way. In a sudden, jarring, public collapse that left fans completely confused about what they were actually watching. The rest started piling up. The emotional spirals became impossible to ignore. His social media presence turned into something that people couldn't even process. Explicit posts, erratic behavior, public meltdowns that felt less like a celebrity going off the rails and more like someone screaming for help in the only way they knew how. Fans who remembered him as the energetic breakout star from Empire were left asking the same question over and over again. What happened to him? What went wrong? And more importantly, what did he experience behind those industry doors that the public never got to see? Because here's what people need to understand about how the entertainment industry operates at the highest levels. When a young artist gets brought into those rooms, they don't always come in with full knowledge of what's being asked of them. They come in hungry, grateful, and eager to please the powerful figures who hold the keys to their career. Mentorship is the word that gets used publicly, guidance, investment, grooming in the professional sense, or at least that's how it gets framed on the surface. But what Jaguar Wright has been claiming for years is that for certain young artists, that mentorship crosses lines that never get discussed openly, that the guidance comes with conditions, that the doors those powerful figures open can close just as fast if the young artist doesn't comply with things they were never prepared to face. Wright has been vocal about Bryshere specifically, alleging that he got pulled into circles that were operating on a completely different level than anything a young man from Philly could have anticipated. She painted a picture of manipulation disguised as opportunity, of industry pressure that doesn't announce itself as pressure but wraps itself in access, money, and the promise of a bigger career. And when you're young, when you haven't built the emotional armor yet, when you genuinely believe these powerful people have your best interests at heart, you don't always recognize what's happening to you until it's already too late to undo it. Then Brother Bilaal entered the conversation and made things significantly darker. His claims about Bryshere went beyond general industry exploitation. He spoke about Bryshere allegedly feeling deeply used, humiliated, and emotionally destroyed after encounters with powerful figures behind closed doors. He described a young man who entered those spaces with confidence and ambition and came out of them carrying something heavy and invisible that he couldn't shake no matter how much time passed. And when you listen to those claims and then look back at Bryshere's very public unraveling, the timeline starts to feel less like coincidence and more like consequence. What makes this even more uncomfortable is how Bryshere's name keeps overlapping with other names already deep in the Diddy sea. Conversation, the same circles, the same industry events, the same network of powerful figures who moved through those spaces like they owned them, because in many ways, they did. And when 50 Cent started teasing these alleged audio recordings and hinting that voices on them belonged to people nobody expected, Bryshere's name immediately surfaced in online discussions, not because anyone officially accused him of anything, but because the pattern of his public breakdown matched what people were describing as the emotional aftermath of what allegedly happened inside those rooms. And that pattern is exactly what the internet can't stop talking about, because Bryshere isn't the only young star who entered these industry spaces full of promise and came out the other side looking like someone who survived something they're not allowed to talk about. That keeps being the thread that connects all of these stories together, and the more those threads get pulled, the more people start wondering if what broke Bryshere was never really about fame, money, or the pressures of celebrity at all. That's when the entire conversation around Bryshere Gray stopped feeling like random celebrity gossip and started feeling like something much darker, because once 50 Cent began openly teasing the idea that recordings existed from inside these alleged freak-off environments, people online immediately began connecting dots that had been sitting in plain sight for years. And whether those rumors are true or exaggerated, the reaction alone showed just how badly the public wants answers about what really happens behind those closed industry doors. 50 doesn't move like most celebrities. He knows exactly how to keep attention on a topic without fully revealing his hand. A cryptic post here, a sarcastic caption there, a vague reference to audio recordings that allegedly contain voices nobody expected to hear. And every single time he hinted at something new, the internet exploded trying to decode who he was talking about. But what made Bryshere's name keep resurfacing wasn't just proximity to the Diddy circle, it was the condition fans believe he ended up in afterward, because when people think back to Bryshere during the Empire years, they remember somebody completely different, confident, loud, funny, ambitious. He carried himself like someone who genuinely believed the future belonged to him. Interviews felt natural, his energy felt authentic, even when he was inexperienced. There was still a sense that he knew who he was. That confidence is part of what made audiences connect with him so quickly. He didn't feel manufactured, he felt real. Then compare that to the version of Bryshere the public started seeing later, the rests, the emotional breakdowns. The disturbing live streams, the explicit content, the moments where he appeared mentally exhausted, disconnected, almost hollow. People weren't just watching a celebrity make bad decisions anymore. They were watching somebody who looked deeply damaged. And that's exactly why these allegations hit differently, because the internet has seen countless celebrities spiral before. Usually the explanation is obvious: addiction, ego, fame, money. But Bryshere's situation always felt strangely emotional in a way people couldn't fully explain. Fans kept saying the same thing over and over again. He doesn't look like himself anymore. And when allegations about humiliation, manipulation, and exploitation started circulating, suddenly people began reinterpreting his breakdown through an entirely different lens. Brother Bilaal's comments only intensified those suspicions. He described Bryshere as somebody who allegedly walked into those elite industry spaces believing he was entering mentorship opportunities, only to leave feeling emotionally destroyed. And if that's even partially true, it changes how people understand everything that happened afterward. Because trauma doesn't always show up quietly. Sometimes it explodes publicly. Sometimes it looks reckless. Sometimes it looks self-destructive. Sometimes it looks exactly like what the world witnessed from Bryshere over the past few years. And this is where the entertainment industry conversation becomes extremely uncomfortable, because people love celebrating young stars when they first arrive. The industry loves marketing the success story, the kid who escaped poverty, the overnight sensation, the raw talent who gets discovered and suddenly becomes rich and famous. But what rarely gets discussed is how vulnerable those young artists actually are when they first enter these circles, especially somebody like Bryshere. He didn't come from generations of industry connections. He wasn't raised around billionaires or executives or celebrity gatekeepers. He came from Philly trying to survive. So imagine being thrown into rooms filled with some of the most powerful people in entertainment almost overnight. Imagine being told these people can make your career global. Imagine believing every invitation is an opportunity. Every private party is networking. Every uncomfortable situation is just how the industry works. That's how manipulation allegedly happens according to people like Jaguar Wright. Not through obvious threats at first, through access, through normalization, through pressure disguised as opportunity. And once someone becomes financially dependent on that world, speaking up allegedly becomes almost impossible, because now your career, reputation, and future all depend on people who hold enormous influence. The same people who can allegedly blacklist you the moment you stop cooperating. That's the fear at the center of these conversations, and it's why so many people online believe Bryshere's public collapse may have been connected to experiences he couldn't openly process or talk about. Then came the social media behavior that truly shocked fans. Some of Bryshere's posts became so erratic and explicit that people genuinely didn't know what they were witnessing anymore. Clips circulated everywhere with captions asking whether he was okay mentally. Some people mocked him, others felt uncomfortable watching, but underneath the jokes and memes was a growing sense that something deeper was happening, because emotional damage has patterns, and the public has started noticing similar patterns in multiple entertainers connected to the same circles. Sudden disappearances, emotional instability, substance abuse, explosive interviews years later, cryptic comments about what really happens in Hollywood. The reason these Diddy allegations have gained so much traction online is because they're attaching themselves to years of rumors people already suspected might exist. That's why 50 Cent's involvement matters so much. He understands public curiosity better than almost anyone. He knows how to amplify a story without directly confirming anything. Every time he posts another cryptic jab or hints at unreleased footage, the internet immediately starts digging through old interviews, old party footage, old industry connections, and every rabbit hole somehow keeps circling back to the same names. Diddy. Industry, elites. Young artists, private parties. Silence afterward, and Bryshere's name continues floating through those conversations because fans believe they witnessed the aftermath in real time. What makes the entire situation tragic is that Bryshere once represented hope to a lot of people, especially young black men coming from difficult environments. He looked like proof that talent alone could still change your life. His rise felt inspiring because it felt genuine, which is exactly why watching his downfall became so disturbing. People didn't just feel disappointed, they felt confused, then concerned, then deeply unsettled. Because the further Bryshere spiraled publicly, the more it stopped resembling ordinary celebrity behavior and started resembling somebody internally collapsing under pressure nobody else could fully see. And now, with the internet revisiting old allegations, old interviews, and alleged connections tied to these freak-off stories, fans are looking back at Bryshere's entire trajectory differently, not as a young star who simply lost control of fame, but potentially as somebody who entered an industry machine completely unprepared for what allegedly existed inside it. Whether every rumor is true or not almost becomes secondary to the larger issue people are now discussing openly. How many young entertainers walk into these environments believing they're chasing success, only to discover too late that success may come with hidden costs nobody warned them about? Because if even a fraction of these allegations are real, then Bryshere Gray's story stops being just another Hollywood downfall. It becomes a warning